Welcome to the Explainer. So, today we're cracking open a really fascinating source that dives straight into the investigator's toolkit for finding truth in what is, let's face it, a pretty chaotic world. Every single day, we are bombarded with claims, data, and supposed facts. But how do scientists, engineers, and doctors actually cut through all that noise to find real, reliable answers? Well, we're going to explore how they use precision and practice to design valid scientific investigations. And by the end of this, you'll be seeing the world through the sharp, clear lens of a master investigator. Okay, let's dive right into this. Think about a time you tried to fix something. Maybe a recipe that tasted weird or a smartphone that kept crashing. What actually happens when you try to solve that problem, but you change too many things at once? Say you add more salt, change the baking temperature, and swap the flour, all at the exact same time. The result? It's literally total chaos. Even if the bread comes out perfectly, you have absolutely no idea which change actually fixed it. Changing multiple things at once creates unreliable data. And in the world of science, unreliable data is the enemy of truth.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be covering bringing order to chaos, the investigator's toolkit, cracking the case files, a quick test your knowledge segment, and finally, education meets morality.
All right, Section 1, Bringing Order to Chaos. The source material actually takes this idea of structured thinking way beyond the laboratory. It highlights a quote from 1 Corinthians 14:40, "Let all things be done decently and in order." The main argument here is that doing things intentionally, keeping things orderly, is exactly how we uncover the truth instead of just stumbling around in the dark. So why does intentional design matter so much? Well, without a fair test, one that changes just one single thing at a time, your results are going to be incredibly misleading. I mean, if an investigator changes a bunch of things all at once, they have no clue what actually caused the effect. That is a massive waste of time. And worse, imagine doctors or engineers making huge decisions based on that bad data. No way. By designing with intention, clearly defining what we're testing, and measuring the results systematically, we pinpoint exact causes and effects. It builds total confidence in our conclusions, and that absolutely impacts real-world health, safety, and tech. Moving right along to Section 2, the investigator's toolkit. Now we're getting to the fun stuff. First step in the toolkit is the manipulated variable, or the independent variable. This is the single factor you change on purpose in an experiment. And I really want to emphasize that word single. This is the one thing you, the investigator, intentionally control to see what happens. Think of it like the active ingredient in your experiment. Next up, we've got the measured variable, also known as the dependent variable. This is the result you record or observe because of the change you just made. So if the manipulated variable is the action, the measured variable is the reaction. It's the hard evidence, the actual data we're actively hunting for during our investigation. And then, of course, we have constants. These are the conditions you keep exactly the same to guarantee absolute fairness. Honestly, constants are kind of the investigator's secret weapon, because if you're changing one thing to see what happens, you absolutely must keep everything else identical. It's literally the only way to make sure your evidence is actually trustworthy and that your manipulated variable is the true cause of your results. And this brilliantly illustrates our next vital concept, the control group. Just look at the difference here. Say you test a new fertilizer without a baseline, so no control group. How on earth do you know if the plant grew because of your fancy new fertilizer or if it just got really good sunlight and water? You don't. But by adding a control, like a plant getting exactly 0% fertilizer, you suddenly have a baseline. It totally cuts through the chaos and proves definitively if your treatment actually made a difference. A master investigator also knows exactly how to write a reproducible procedure. First, you need crystal clear numbered steps. Second, you've got to build in repeated trials. You can't just test something once and call it a day. Repeating trials crushes random error and makes your averages super reliable. And finally, a good detective leaves a trail any rookie could follow. You have to write your procedure so anyone else could reproduce your work exactly. Okay, Section 3, Cracking the Case Files. Let's crack open Case File 1, Paper Towel Absorbency. We want to know which brand is actually the best. So our manipulated variable is the brand. We're testing two different ones. The measured variable is the water absorbed, carefully measured out in milliliters. Now, what's really interesting about this slide are the constants. To guarantee a totally fair fight, we keep the square size, the water temp, and the exact dunk time perfectly identical for both brands. We also use a blank filter paper as our baseline control, and we repeat the dunk test 3 times per brand. Because only one factor, the brand, changes, any difference in absorption is undeniably linked to the brand itself. Next up is case file 2, plant growth and light color. Here we change the light color, red, blue, and white. That's our manipulated variable. We're measuring the plant height in centimeters every single week. And our constants are incredibly strict. Exact same water volume, soil type, pot size, and seed type. Our baseline control is the white light group. And notice the trials here. Using 5 plants per group instead of just 1 guarantees our comparison is completely valid and not just some fluke from one weird seed. Finally, case file 3. The friction ramp test. Imagine sliding a block down a ramp to see how surface texture affects friction. The manipulated variable is the surface, wood, felt, or sandpaper. We measure the time it takes from top to bottom in seconds, and the constants, the mass of the block, the angle of the ramp, and the exact release point absolutely must be identical every single time. The bare wood acts as our baseline control, and by averaging 5 runs per surface, we can tell precisely how the texture changes the speed. Again, it's all about order over chaos. All right. Section 4. Test your knowledge. Let's see how this builds your critical thinking. Look at these challenges. If you were testing the effect of music on memory, could you identify the variables and constants? Or do you have what it takes to write a flawless 6-step procedure to figure out how lid tightness affects soda fizz loss? What about designing a data table for a 3-trial experiment on magnet strength? Honestly, I highly encourage you to pause this explainer right here, grab a notebook, and actually try to work through these 5 challenges. Being able to design this kind of structure, that is a literal superpower. Which brings us to Section 5, Education Meets Morality. So, the crucial point is, how does all this tie into the bigger picture? Well, the Heroesmart Academy Godly Learners series source material connects this to a really powerful philosophy. Education without morality will hurt. The text poses a genuinely fascinating question. I mean, what is the point of being highly educated, of knowing how to master variables and design perfect experiments, if we just keep making bad moral choices that hurt ourselves and the people around us? The source basically argues that a brilliant mind without a moral compass is kind of like a ridiculously fast car with no steering wheel. The source material actually draws a really interesting parallel here. Just as a scientific method brings order to chaotic data, it suggests that engaging with a spiritual morality brings genuine order to our human experience. It references Romans chapter 8, verses 6 through 7, proposing that there is a profound peace of mind available to everyone who keeps their mind spiritual. Basically, it's about applying the exact same intentionality to your character that you apply to your science. And I'll leave you with this final provocative thought from the text. If we're willing to test our science with such strict, rigid order, keeping our constant steady and running repeated trials just to find out which paper towel is best, how are you testing your life choices to find true peace?